everyone. Welcome to the Policy Wall of ORF Middle East. I'm Eszter Karacsony, Associate Fellow in Geopolitics at ORF Middle East, and I'm delighted to be joined by His Excellency, Ambassador Francesco Talò, Italy's Special Envoy for the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC. Your Excellency, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're delighted to have you. Ambassador, you have been appointed to this position in April 2025, thereby becoming Italy's first ever IMEC Special Envoy. You have a long-standing career in the Italian diplomatic and foreign service. You serve as senior advisor to the Italian Minister of Defense, and you held the position of diplomatic advisor to Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Furthermore, you equally served overseas in various countries and regions, one of which is the Middle East. So, Ambassador, drawing on your expertise and knowledge in international relations, and also your deep understanding in multi-regional dynamics, please allow me to start our conversation by asking, how does IMEC align with Italy's foreign policy objectives and economic interests?
IMEC is certainly a priority for our international relations. Is important for our economic interests, especially in a time of great uncertainty, when we have to be dynamic. The world is running. We cannot stop and just look at the events. And we have to work everywhere, to look everywhere, to differentiate our markets in order to be ready to face possible challenges, and the opportunities are everywhere. So with IMEC, really, we are going to intensify the already strong and important relations we have with India, the most populous country of the world, where you have demography, but you have a very important economic growth, with the Middle East and especially the Gulf countries, which are our very important partners, especially the Emirates, where we are now. It's a great partner and friend of Italy. And, of course, the Eastern Mediterranean and Europe. In IMEC, we work as a Team Europe, so we continue to keep our important European identity and approach, but we do it open to what I like to call the Indo-Mediterranean.
Yes, you already covered my second question, which was basically how does IMEC impact Italy's role with this very complex multi-regional connectivity setup from the Mediterranean to the Indo-Pacific and potentially even further. So I would maybe like to ask, based on Italy's geographic specificities and existent port infrastructure, what role could the country play in linking Europe's hinterland, those countries who are not necessarily IMEC signatories or have maritime access, to the IMEC architecture? And also, what would be the criteria, so to say, to become an IMEC port in Italy?
Well, first of all, we are market economies. So the most important criteria is decided by the business. So the market will decide where to go, what to do. But we can offer infrastructures, we can offer a vision and the international connections. And of course, there are countries in Europe which are landlocked. They don't have their own harbors. Here in Italy, we have, let's say, an ideal situation, a geographical position being in the very center of the Mediterranean, which is by definition the Middle Sea, the sea in between the two most important water basins of the globe, the Indo-Pacific and the Atlantic. And we also have the northernmost harbor of all the Mediterranean, Trieste. So the Adriatic Sea goes up in the Mediterranean, and it's very close to this group of countries of Central Eastern Europe. Several of them don't have access to the sea. Others are on the Baltic Sea or the Black Sea, which are somehow distant from the open oceans, and especially from the harbors which are open to the Indo-Pacific, which is the the fastest growing region of the world. So Trieste could be somehow also the hub for the Three Seas initiative. In fact, is already the place where you have the Secretariat, the center of the Central Eastern European initiative. So Central Eastern Europe, of course, could have access to IMEC via Trieste or other harbors in the Adriatic. And in any case, most of the countries of the region are part of the European Union, and we are working with a spirit of Team Europe.
Thank you. You mentioned this Team Europe approach that I would also like to unpack a little bit and link it also to capital investment. You mentioned also the importance of the business community. So we can potentially say that capital mobilization is instrumental to IMEC's implementation. So I was wondering how the European signatory countries, so Italy, France, Germany, and the European Union itself can join forces and pool resources also to some extent to enhance the project's implementation. And how can maybe Italian businesses be motivated to invest in such a project? What could IMEC's investment appeal be, so to say?
We organized already meetings with, let's say, the business community in Italy, and in order to inform them and to listen to them. And we think that there is an important potential. They are interested, but of course they want to have a concrete impact. They want to have returns. So we need, first of all, to better understand where we are going, which is the direction, where the money can come from, and which is the entity of the investments we need. That's why we will need feasibility studies. We can work with partners like the EU, first of all, but also others like the OECD or the World Bank. So the banking system has to be involved. Together, we can be stronger, we can offer more guarantees, and also, let's say, a political security environment. Because, of course, without security, you don't invest, you don't put your money in an environment which is not completely safe. So this is another aspect where we can work together.
Thank you so much. This also brings me to my follow-up question about the security environment. So in the current geopolitical situation, we see how tensions rise in certain parts of the world, one of which is the Middle East. And I was wondering, in your point of view, is IMEC designed or can be designed or adapted to withstand existent and potential upcoming geopolitical hurdles? Can it stand the test of time? How could IMEC, so to say, be future-proofed and tension-proofed?
Well, IMEC is a vision, so it's for the future. And it's, let's say, an optimistic vision. I met several times President Perez, the Nobel laureate, and it used to say that the pessimists and the optimists die alike. So, but the optimists live in a better way. So we have to be optimists, we have to hope, but we have to prepare for everything. We have to be aware, realistic, aware that we are living in very challenging times. So we have to protect our critical infrastructures. Here I'm thinking, for instance, on the need to protect also the underwater structures, so like digital cables, like pipelines, like harbors. I think that the underwater domain is going to be the future of our security dimension. And in Italy, we have technologies to work on this. We have big companies like Fincantieri who work in this domain in order, for instance, to create security bubble around an important harbor. But we have also to nurture a vision, also in difficult times. So we have a political duty to nurture this vision, which is certainly very much consistent with the Abraham Accords. And on the other hand, to work on concrete projects, one after the other. They have to be feasible today in order that they can be the steps that on which we can work in order to go towards our vision. Then, of course, we need also to have bigger projects where we need a lot of money, where we need investments and common commitment. It's complicated, and that's why I think we should not stop to an exclusive, let's say, corridor, a one-way street. We should widen a little bit our approach and think in terms of network. So much more than a corridor, maybe a network of corridors, it's more appropriate. And the IMEC started because we need alternatives, because we need to differentiate. Of course, Suez will remain the most important route to reach the Mediterranean. But we know that we have troubles now in Bab el-Mandeb because of attacks by Houthis. We know that one day we could have another time problems the canal, ship. So let's have new possibilities. Also because we understand that the exchanges between India and Europe could double in 10 years. So this means that we need more infrastructure, more rules, the more the better. In this sense, speaking about network, I like to mention Africa. For us in Italy, Africa is really a priority. We have the Mattei plan. And I understand that it is very important that we can work together with other partners of IMEC, like India and the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you so much. And maybe just one question to conclude. You mentioned IMEC's importance for these regions and to stabilize to some extent also both the political and to some extent the geopolitical situation. I was wondering, how could IMEC be seen as a reconstruction project, as a sort of a peace project also for the Middle East, where we are sitting right now?
Yes, absolutely. Why not? It will not be the solution, of course. The problem is so big and complex that we need so many other actions and especially strong political will. But it can help. Connections are very important, especially having common interests. And here I like to speak about a peace triangle. So the idea of having common interests among Jordan, Palestine, and Israel, they can work together, and IMEC can offer an opportunity, a framework of cooperation. So imagine a railway arriving in Jordan, and from Jordan going to Israel, the Palestinian territories, Gaza, hopefully, and working together on energy, on water. So there could be very useful exchanges among the three parties. So this could be an important way of building, let's say, what, again, I would like to mention Perez, because he says one startup nation is not enough to have peace. It's nice to have the startup nation, but it's not enough. We need to have a startup region. Visiting the United Arab Emirates, I'm seeing another startup nation, wonderful achievements. The Gulf is going to be a startup region. Let's have a wider startup region from the Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Talò, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for this discussion to help us understand Italy's IMEC perception and also prospects. And of course, you're always welcome to come back and continue this exchange.
It's very nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you.